This week on World Traveler Cooking, we're going to make a very unusual dessert from northern India. It's also found in certain parts of Pakistan, called Seviyan Kheer. Now, if you've seen kheer in Indian restaurants, it's usually rice kheer, but apparently in certain parts of India they make kheer out of pasta, usually some sort of a vermicelli, and so this is what I'm going to do. Now, additionally, different people have their own ways of cooking this and seasoning it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the variation I've seen in some of the recipes. Also, given that variation, I'm going to make a couple substitutes to make things easier for people to prepare here. So, the seasonings, which are probably the areas where you have some of the most variation, I'm using today basically from an Indian friend of mine. This is what he uses. So I have cardamon, a fair bit of it. I have just a little bit of saffron, and I have a pinch of nutmeg. So that's the main thing. And I forgot to get the ghee out, but we'll use ghee. You can also use a clarified butter like a butter schmaltz in Germany or something like that. Then we have our vermicelli. Now, in this case, I've gone ahead and I've just used the German Suppen noodle. These are basically thin pieces of semolina vermicelli that have been cut fairly short. You could also use thicker, longer pieces of vermicelli if you like, but this is what I could quickly get. Some people also prefer to use whole wheat, but I couldn't find whole wheat, so I ended up using this. If you're using whole wheat, you could go with like a whole wheat spaghetti and then break it into little pieces. Italians can not watch this part of the episode while you do that. At any rate, so this will form the carbohydrate basis of this dessert. Finally, we have nuts and fruit. Now, I'm using sliced almonds and chopped hazelnuts for the nuts. More traditional would be cashews and pistachios, but I couldn't find pistachios at the store, and I didn't see cashews quickly, so this is what I'm using. And then I have some raisins, and I would say about a handful of each. You don't have to be terribly precise on this. Finally, since it is a dessert, it will be sweetened with sugar. Use as much or as little as you like. I would say for this much, which is 120, I would say about an equal weight of sugar and vermicelli would put it in the sweet dessert category. I'm probably going to use a little less than that, but however you'd like. And then finally, we have milk. And you can use, for 120 grams, that's about a cup of vermicelli, you could use a whole liter of milk if you'd like. I'm probably going to use only like 600 or 700 milliliters, but if you like a runnier kheer, make it thinner. If you like a thicker kheer, add less milk. So those are all the ingredients. As I say, I don't have the ghee out right here, but I will be using it. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start by toasting the nuts. So once the ghee is melted, we will add the nuts. We're going to just toast these until they're golden brown. And definitely don't add the raisins at this point. So I'm just going to stir them in the ghee. And I'll be back when they're ready to be taken out. So you can see these are browning now, so I'm going to take them out, and then I'm going to start roasting the vermicelli. So I'll be right back. So in goes another good spoonful of ghee, and since the pan's already hot, even before this melts, I'm just going to add the vermicelli. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to toast this vermicelli until it's browning. So once that's done, I'll be back, and then the milk's already boiling, so the milk can be added once the vermicelli is brown. And it's just a real quick note. You do have to pay attention to the milk, because once it starts boiling, it can boil over very quickly. So pay attention to it, and be careful. And one final note while I'm doing this is you can be a little bit generous on the ghee, because in India sometimes people make this with water buffalo milk. And water buffalo milk is higher in butterfat than cow milk is. And so you'd get a richer product out. So if you like it a little richer, sure, go ahead and add a little more ghee. But, you know, you can just eyeball it. It doesn't have to be that precise. So as you can see now, it's browning. We're going to let this go just a bit longer, and then we are going to add the milk. So I think this is far enough, so going to pour in the milk now. Now, if you find that you've added too little milk, you can always add more. The milk doesn't actually have to be boiling if you have to top it off. So we're going to let this cook for a few minutes, and then we will add our sugar and then our spices. So now that the vermicelli is pretty cooked, I'm going to add 3 spoonfuls of sugar. That should be about 45 grams. As I say, you can go up to 120 grams. Or maybe I'll do 4. That would be like about 90 grams. No, 60 grams, sorry. And then we're just going to stir this until it dissolves. There we are. Let it boil for another like 2 or 3 minutes, and then we'll add our seasonings. So now it's been about 2 minutes, so I'm going to add my seasonings, and then we will stir this in. We're going to let this cook for a little bit too. The thing about this is at this point many people will add a little rose water or a little bit of rose petals. That's optional. You can skip them if needed. And the times I've had it home cooked over here in Germany, it has not been with rose water or rose petals. Anyway, we're just going to let this cook, let the flavors meld for just a few minutes, and then we'll add our nuts and fruit on. Alright, so now it's been a few more minutes. I'm just going to add the nuts and the raisins. And we will stir this all together. And here we have a relatively thick kheer. Okay? Now, as kheer cools down, it will solidify. So if you want to reheat it, all you do is you add more milk and then heat it up. So next up, a little bit of plating and then taste test. And so here we have our Seviyan Kheer. Next up, the taste test. Now for the taste test. Absolutely delicious. Absolutely delicious. This is a really amazing dessert. You gotta try it. This is absolutely delicious. In fact, it would definitely be even better with rose water. Now, one thing I am noting though is that despite the fact that I cut the sugar way down, it's still very, very sweet. So one thing you need to note is that if you cut the milk down, you need to cut the sugar down by about the same. I put in about 2/3 of the milk. I cut the sugar down by half. This is definitely in the sweet dessert, very sweet dessert category. So next time I would suggest maybe 3 spoons instead of 4, given the fact that I had, if you're only using 700 mils of milk. But on the whole, this is just delicious. You have the sweet spices, you have the sugar, you have the roasted flavors from the nuts and the vermicelli in there. This is just absolutely delicious. So, at any rate, if you found this interesting, I hope I've earned a like and a subscription from you. And please check out my Patreon page where you can find access to videos that haven't become public yet, as well as participate in some of the discussions I have about planning future videos. And that's one way you can have your voice heard. You can also comment here on the videos. So at any rate, I also want to say, if you make a dish like this, I would love to hear what you do differently from me, because sharing techniques is one thing that we all can learn from each other. So recipes in the description. Bon appetit, and see you next week.